Hello again. Excuse me. It is, of course, Dr. Jimmy, and this is the 6th part of Halloween Horror Nights 25 Revealed. All secrets of Halloween Horror Nights 25 Revealed. My annual presentation, which every year around the beginning of April I inform all of you just what to expect at the event this year. This is, of course, once again, I must admonish those of you who, for whatever reason, don't know how to count, that this is the 6th of this video presentation. You must watch parts 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5 before you begin watching this one. Okay? And if, by some possibility, I don't wrap the damn thing up in this video, then go to part 7. Oh, I hope there's no part 7, but there might very well be. Anyway, here we go. I've already described the event of Halloween Horror Nights 25. Duel Britannia, the Silver Jubilee, the Icon, Union Jack the Clown, and 10 haunted houses. 8 regular ones, and 2 extreme houses, which you have to pay an upcharge in order to go to. I've talked about all of that already, and now I can begin the streets of the event, the scare zones of Halloween Horror Nights 25. Scare zones too have a decidedly British feel to them. The first of which is located, I know where these are, the first of which, I don't know where the houses will be exactly, but the streets I know. The first street is New York Street, and it will be called London Fog, and it will be a Victorian London scare zone. Now, or didn't they do that before Streets of Blood? Well, yes, but this will be bigger. This one will have lots more fog and all sorts of Victorian horrors. Jack the Ripper, yes, but Jack the Ripper as an evil clown, but also Jekyll and Hyde, and the Hound of the Baskervilles, and Sherlock Holmes and Professor Moriarty, and all sorts of other strange twisted creatures that you might encounter in Victorian London. The Elephant Man, for example, or perhaps that devilish Mr. Alistair Crowley up to no good. All those other strange characters from Victorian horror fiction, even Dracula, and perhaps somebody else we don't know, but it'll be quite remarkable. They did a similar scare zone in Hollywood, and they actually had an evil Queen Victoria. Well, maybe they'll do that, maybe they won't. The next scare zone is set in Sting Alley. This year, Sting Alley will be a separate scare zone once again, because they don't have the construction problem, and they not going to do like the Purge that incorporated the whole thing. Oh, they were going to do a Purge house this year, originally a Purge 3 house. That was part of the original plan, but that was scrapped. I forgot to mention that in the first video. I just thought I might throw that in there just to let you know some of the stuff that they had to give up for the event. But going back to the scare zone in Sting Alley, it'll be featuring football hooligans. That's right. There's going, as you might be aware, soccer, as you call it in the United States, is known as football everywhere else in the world except for Australia, where it's also called soccer. They have a sport in Australia called football, which looks a bit like a cross between rugby and mixed martial arts. It's a very rowdy game. I have no idea how the scoring works, because it's like 1, and then next thing you know it's 1, and one team has 1 point, the other team has 596 points, and how the hell does that? And then the next one has 1,022 points. What the hell? I have no idea how the Aussies do that. I think they're just running about in shorts and sleeveless shirts, just having a hell of a good time after drinking too much. It's what it looks like to me. It's a rowdy, violent sport, quite fun. And that's why they call football soccer in Australia. In America, there's a game called football, which is not played with the feet, but with the hands. And that's always bothered Europeans quite a bit, and South Americans and others. I was in Budapest a couple of years ago, and the tour guide said, why do you call it football and you play it with your hands? And why do you have to stop and rest every few minutes? And why do you have to wear body armor? You know, it's like to play this game. And that's the sort of way they look at it, with a lot of condensation. But I actually like American football. I was rooting for the Seahawks, but I believe that in the end the Patriots deserved to win because the Seahawks were stupid. Really, really stupid at the end. But enough of that. This isn't about sports. Well, it is about sports. It's about football. It's about soccer. And these hooligans, they're not going to name the teams because they know that some of the British guests will be either for one or the other teams. But it should be obvious because there'll be a team in red and a team in blue, or rather the football supporters, the hooligans. There'll be some supporting a team with red colours and other with blue colours. If you know anything about it, in London there are two teams. Arsenal, who has red, and Chelsea, who have blue, and they are arch rivals. But in this case, the two factions will be, let's see, it'll be a lot like the Purge in a way, because there'll be bloody violence and gore and death and destruction, not just regular hooliganism, and you're caught in between the two of them. Furthermore, there's a lovely urban legend in Britain. It's been going on for a long time. There's this urban legend that there's a demented group of Chelsea fans, extreme hooligans, and they drive around in a blue van, and if they catch anyone they think is an Arsenal supporter, they grab them and they ask them, and then if they are Arsenal supporters, they take and they cut right across the face, like, you know, slashing, giving them a horrible grin, like Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, and then make them scream so that it rips wide open. Chelsea, and they're called the Chelsea Smilers. It's an urban myth of the Chelsea Smilers. There's no proof that ever actually happened, but that's a myth. So they're going to utilize the bread truck that they've had for the Purge last year, and they used for the zombie bomb 2 years ago, and that is going to be painted blue, and it'll feature, you know, they'll jump out and you'll see that sort of thing going on with the smiles and the victims, as well as those with the blades doing this. So that'll fit in, so that British guests will get the joke, of course. American guests will just see something gory and horrible happening in front of them, but they should appreciate it anyway because it's horrific. But it'll mean more to those who've grown up with that story. So the hooligans will be in Sting Alley, and also the roving bread truck might drive around to other parts of the park as well, and the Chelsea Smilers will come after people. Although they're not going to use the names Chelsea or Arsenal. Again, there's probably copyright reasons why they don't do that as well, besides not wanting to bother guests who might support one or the other team. The next scare zone is in the San Francisco area, and this scare zone will feature punk rockers who are actually vampires. Not goth rockers as vampires, that'd be too obvious. These are more classic punks like the Sex Pistols from the 70s, but as bloody vampires and vampire versions of Johnny Rotten and Sid Vicious and that sort of thing. Really don't need to describe that much more than that, because it already you understand what we're talking about, and that kind of violent anarchy in the UK, but the anarchy is bloodsuckers. It might actually fit into that updated Hammer Dracula house in a weird way. The fourth scare zone will be in Central Park area. It's going to be called Nightmares. That's Nightmares, 2 words, and night is spelled with a K, and it's going to be a medieval British scare zone, a sort of enchanted forest with all sorts of knights and ogres and things, but it also will incorporate, of course, the Knights of the Round Table and Robin Hood and all of those types of stories, but told twisted and psychotic. And so you'll have people shot up with arrows, and you'll have like and even a bit of a nod to Monty Python and the Holy Grail. You're going to have the knight getting his arms chopped off and blood is spurting out, and he acts like it's just a scratch, you know, that sort of thing. And in fact, one person at Art and Design really wants to have a shout out to that movie so badly. He wants to put the little rabbit, the killer rabbit, in that scene. They might allow him to do that. If so, you might have a killer rabbit somewhere in that woods in the forest of Sherwood Forest, or however they're going to change it into Gorewood Forest or whatever, or however they're going to change the name to make it more horrific. Sure Blood Forest, probably. That would be best, yes. That will be the Nightmares Scare Zone. And a similar idea, Hollywood Boulevard, will be transformed into a twisted version of all the more popular children's literature from Britain. And some of the set pieces really amaze me at what they've got planned. There's going to be, for example, a scene where there's two horrific, gigantic, slavering bears growling and snapping at each other as they fight over the little children's bodies they've been eating. And you will see that one of the bears is wearing a red t-shirt, but it's an actual gigantic bear, and the other one is wearing a sort of anorak, that is a yellow rain slicker type thing. In other words, it's Pooh and Paddington. Again, without giving the names, people will get who they're supposed to be. And the victims will have a rather nasty, the dead children will have a nasty resemblance to Christopher Robin and the other children from Paddington. So it's quite horrible. There's going to be a bed that's crashed into the side of a building, and it has a glowing bed knob. So it's another thumbing the nose at Disney, and a gigantic lion with a crown will come running out attacking people. It's a reference to bed knobs and broomsticks. There's going to be evil versions of otter and badger and mole and toad from The Wind in the Willows, with the weasels chewing on human flesh and stuff like that. There's going to be also Peter Rabbit, sick versions of that. You can imagine how they can twist this up. They thought about Alice in Wonderland, but they've done that before, so they're going to leave that one alone. But they will have evil versions of the Lost Boys and Peter Pan and Captain Hook, with Hook actually catching and hooking the boy, and sick versions of Tinkerbell. Again, they can't do too much Disney, but they're going to twist what they can to get away with it, with that. But the biggest one, and the biggest to Disney, will be the character of an evil psychotic nanny, and with an umbrella. And they have to do this so it isn't too obvious, trademark infringement, but clearly it will be Scary Poppins. And she'll be kind of the main character in this sick version of British children's stories told in here. Finally, the sixth scare zone is quite exciting, and for years now they have been unable to utilize certain portions of the parks because of problems with J.K. Rowling and Warner Brothers in the Harry Potter franchise. Now, it's not that they don't want those parks to be allowed to be part of a Halloween event. The truth is, the real objection from Rowling and from Warner Brothers was that the Wizarding World of Harry Potter had to be its own separate area from the rest of Universal Studios. When you go into the Wizarding World, you're supposed to be absolutely immersed in the Wizarding World and have no connection to the other part of it. That's why they have that London street, and you go through that entrance, and then you're totally in Diagon Alley. You're outside of the rest of the park. You can't see the rest of the park. You're totally in Potterland. That's what they want to maintain. They do not want it to be part of Horror Nights, where you might have Chainsaw people or Jack the Clown or anybody running around in that area. So, after long, tedious negotiations with Rowling herself and her agents, and with Warner Brothers going over all of these issues, they finally got them to agree that yes, they can use it for Halloween Horror Nights, so long as whatever happens in Harry Potter stays in Harry Potter, and nothing from the rest of the event goes anywhere near that. So they will be able to keep Diagon Alley open at last this year. The train's not going to be running, but Diagon Alley will be open, but nothing from outside the rest of the park will be in that part. It'll be specifically Harry Potter oriented. And by making it Halloween, they'll fill the streets with fog, and in the fog will be Death Eaters and Dementors, Lord Voldemort, and characters playing Voldemort, and werewolves, the ones from the films, the monsters from the films only. Maybe even throw a spider in there somewhere, but it will all be Potter creatures in the Potter world, so that it won't have anything to do with the rest of Halloween Horror Nights, and that way they can keep that open. So they will be doing that this year at last. Now that's all the scare zones. All that's left are the shows, and the shows for the event this year will be quite the usual thing. Bill and Ted will be Bill and Ted, like it always is, making fun of all the pop culture of the previous year. They had no need to change that up. In the other show, well, it's going to be yet again the Rocky Horror Picture Show tribute, and oddly enough, they don't have to change that because, well, Frankenfurter's British. I mean, all of the Transylvanians are played by British actors. It's just the two, it's just Brad and Janet who are Americans, and so they can keep it because it fits in anyway. So that's going to stay the same as well. So there you have it, Halloween Horror Nights 25, Ghoul Britannia, the Silver Jubilee. This is the event as currently planned. It might change again, you never know. Those people at Comcast may decide it's all a bad idea and go back to what they had previously planned, or they'll have some new idea entirely, we don't know. But that's the whole scenario, and that's what you can expect this year. Unless, of course, the whole thing is a load of bollocks, because it's April Fool's after all. You never know. It could be true. I could be that devious, or the whole thing is just a load of dingoes' kidneys, or some of it, or part of it, is true. It's up to you to figure out which way it is. Thus, at last I complete, in 6 videos, all secrets of Halloween Horror Nights 25 revealed. Have a wonderful rest of April, and I'll see you at the park. Unless you see me first, in which case you should run away screaming.